to learn from my colleagues and from my classmates at that time. On theories and models in cultural studies and literature. So this repartition is just methodological, just because we need someone to be specialized in this or that area. Otherwise, other than this, there is no limit to the things that we can learn. Okay. So, Samia Mustafi, thank you, Ustad Morshid. Yeah, he has mentioned you personally because he believes in your capacities and he knows how hardworking you are. That's really nice. That's good. Picasso, welcome back, sir. Thank you, Picasso. Glad to see you again here. سي عبد العالي اهلا وسهلا. Mr. عبد العالي الفقير or teacher عبد العالي he has always been an outstanding student. Now he is a teacher, of course, for some 14 years or so. I guess it's more than that. Yeah. I had the good fortune of teaching him as early as maybe 2009 or 2010. I don't remember. Okay. But we have kept in touch, and I'm very happy that he is about to finish his doctorate as well. Good. لا يقدر العلم إلا أصحاب العلم. That's true. So life, that's lifelong. Learning is lifelong. All right. Mustafa Morshid, competition is the law of the jungle, but cooperation is the law of civilization. Peter Kropotkin, that's a very good quote, despite the fact that I don't know the author, nor have I ever heard of the quote. But it's good to read, There is a lot of wisdom there. Competition is the law of the jungle, but cooperation is the law of civilization. Although we must, competition is good. I mean, when it is positive, it is good. Sorry. وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسون. It's good. There is when you compete for a good grade with someone, that fuels you with a lot of energy, and it hones your ideal L2 self, so that you can do more, so that you can get the best out of you as a student, for example. Very nice. Okay. But when competition is fierce in the negative sense, no. When it's mingled with a lot of jealousy and a lot of hatred and a lot of what's that? When someone is pugnacious, is irascible. No, that's not a good thing, of course. Nathalie Leblanc says the best way to learn how to be good at all skills is to practice that skill. I fully agree with you. I would add the best way to become a better professor is to follow the best professor like you. Okay. Thank you, Nathalie. Thank you. Really nice of you to say that. These motivating words are exactly what keeps. This is the thing that keeps me, always eager to stand to sit here in front of the screen and talk to you. Thank you so much, indeed. Najil Aitouri says, hello, sir, welcome back. Thank you. This idea, welcome back, means that the absence has been noticed, and it has been for more days than normal. Thank you. So my apologies for this absence, of course. Si Mohammed Al-Zraq, hello, dear professor. Glad to see you. Thank you. Academic journey requires being specialized, expert in a specific area, with adopting multidisciplinary approach. That's true. Especially when you become a professor. There are courses that you might be called upon to teach, and some of the courses are multidisciplinary in nature. For example, there was a module I remember that I was asked to teach. It's language and culture. So there is the linguistics part, and you definitely need to do something in cultural studies to read texts that are not linguistics at all. So I would agree with you, and I gave you just the example of a practical situation where this multidisciplinarity is required. All right. Mohammed Boysan, hello, Morshid. Good to see you here. Good. We are all happy to see Mr. Morshid here. See Mohammed, teacher, cooperation rather than competition. Dears, that's true. Okay. Leila, hello. Not a student of English literature, but I always find the English language fascinating and interesting. So listening to your inputs is always appreciated. Thank you very much, Leila. for these encouraging words. Okay. Now, do you suggest that we go straight to the point, or do you suggest that we answer a few questions beforehand? We all have time. I have time. I have enough time to open a bracket and discuss, issues probably with you, not necessarily answering them with precision, but just to quench your curiosity to know about certain things in the field of research, in the field of English, in the field of linguistics, language education. That would be okay. That would be good. All right. So we answer questions. Okay. Tell us, is there a question that you would like? Okay. Simorshid says we answer questions. It means I should ask you and you answer. Well, let's talk about the distinctive features in case there are no questions at the beginning. Later on, because I was also, this is a message to spread to the people in S3, for example. Okay, S3 students, they have grammar 3. I got a request and maybe a few exams to look at, a few previous exams. So in the next 2 days, I will schedule a session just for that. But please spread the word to the people you think, okay, can benefit from this, or can just participate, okay, with us here. Nathalie Leblanc says, how can we deal with multiple specifiers of T, of tense? That will depend on the model, of course. That's the reason why in syntax, every now and then there is a new model that gets, that is fleshed out to account for the recalcitrant data of the previous model. For the framework I am most familiar with, which is that of government abiding, that of XBAR theory, this problem, it never surfaces in the examples that we use, just to tell you the truth. So this will depend on the framework, as I said. Some solutions to this, broadly speaking, the solution is to think of layers. So whenever there is a problem of multiple, the solution was to invent the VP shell versus, the other V, the normal V or the big V. And, this was the case also with certain features having to do with focus and with the positioning of the subject. The solution again was to add more layers in the tree diagram. I guess that this is, but I don't have the details to tell you the truth, Nathalie Leblanc. Okay, probably a framework like the minimalist program can answer this question. I mean, more clearly, I provide you with just a broad. But one thing that is sure is that in a tree diagram representation, we have to make sure that the branches are binary. So we have a node, and and there is a binary branching. If it's a ternary branching, that is to say 3 branches, this is not allowed. It's one of the principles of XBAR theory, and of course later frameworks. Just as the crossing of the branches are not allowed. So when you have multiple complements, for example, to the verb, or multiple specifiers, multiple object, whatever nature, if we adopt this framework that we adopt at the level of S5, for example, of XBAR theory and government unbinding, then of course we are breaking the rule here. For example, he told you that he is nice. So he told is the verb told, to tell. And then you have the direct object you, and then you have another object. Okay, so here I always avoid these examples with my students, because this is going to make the burden of understanding these examples difficult. So Natalie, that has to do with a framework that is relatively recent, or comparatively recent, like the framework of minimalism. But there is also, I don't know, Natalie, whether you have been introduced to optimality theory. These multiple elements are regulated by constraints. constraints that are faithfulness constraints and markedness constraints. So a good mastery of optimality theory will certainly, okay, solve problems like these. Optimality theory as a framework has proved to be to trace past the existing frameworks. Optimality theory refers to that as a principles and parameter frameworks or pre-OT frameworks. So as I told you, people, linguists, if faced with recalcitrant data, they have to think of a model that can solve problems that the previous framework could not. Okay, sorry. All right. That's Natalie. That's with regard to Natalie's question. No, we ask. Okay, you can ask. Yes, of course. Nofel Khalil, Professor, I hope you get the chance to correct with us the previous exams of syntax. Of course, I will do that without any problem. The only condition is that you make the request and you come to the live. Okay, I cannot do that in absentia because I have a feeling that very few students at the level of S5 join us here. But I will do that for sure. See Nofel, if you could possibly, because I keep the list of, especially before the exam, I keep a list of your requests. So please send me a message to either to my Gmail or a private message on Facebook. There, and then I will, I will make sure I will not forget this. See Mohammed Bouknifi, hello, hi all. I've just joined you. I hope everything is going greatly. Everything is going well. Thank you very much, Si Mohammed. And I was glad to see you in Meknes a couple of days ago. It was a very nice event, and this is an occasion for me to thank the organizing committee, especially Professors Masoudi and Professor Madani, Mahdi and Mohammed Masoudi, two young scholars, two young professors at the Faculty of Letters and Human Sciences, Meknes, Moulay Ismail University. They organized the event and they followed every single detail of it, and they made it a real success. And that could be seen in the number of students that attended that lecture of mine. So I was very satisfied with that. And I should not miss this opportunity of warmly and sincerely thanking Professor Mohamed Larouz, who is who is the Dean of the Faculty of Letters and Human Sciences, Moulay Ismail University, Meknes, who provided us with all the logistic and all the conditions, in fact, and for the warm welcome and for the generosity that he has shown. So thank you, Professor Mohamed Larouz. Mohamed Larouz is also a professor at the English department, and he's a researcher in the field of applied linguistics. All right. Latifa El-Jamili, can you share books, titles on phonology and morphology? Yes, I'm a master student at Ibn Tufail, so I must read about these subjects. For phonology, there are a number of books, but I would, Ketsmani, you listen to me, please. If you need to have a good grasp of phonology, because the phonology books that exist, let's say, for example, Larry Hyman, for example, 1975, it's a good introduction to phonology, but it's very hard to understand for a beginner. You see, there is one by the name of Roger Lass, Phonology, an Introduction to Basic Concepts. This is really difficult to understand, despite the fact that Larry Hyman and Roger Lass deal with the same thing, and everyone has his or her way of explaining things. The book I strongly recommend is one by Francis Katamba. I do not really remember the name. Is it Generative Phonology Description and Theory? No, that's Larry Hyman. So let me see. Let me just find Katamba's book. Really nice. Phonology. Okay, let me see. An Introduction to Phonology. Yeah, very good. I highly recommend Francis Katamba, An Introduction to Phonology. Okay, you'll read it and you will appreciate the simplicity with which the author introduces concepts. For example, the people complain about the fact that they don't understand phonological processes. Katamba is where these processes are mentioned in a very clear way, in a very nice way with the examples. So just go and read about that. But of course, there are others, as I've mentioned some. There is one by Sanford Shane. It's entitled just Generative Phonology, and that's 1973. There are others, of course, some of the recent ones, because I am old school. I'm talking about the books that I read in the 90s. Okay, but these are very, very nice ones. For advanced stuff in phonology, I would recommend Roger Lass, because he incorporates, there is a chapter maybe entitled Syllables of Time, where he talks about, where there is a discussion of comparative philology and how phonology can help trace languages to different origins. This is a very interesting one. If you have a special request in regard to this, then you can send me a private message to suggest or even to attach books if I have them available. Okay, nice. Mohammed Al-Zraq says, as a matter of reasoning, is it acceptable to treat a 7-point instead of 5-point Likert scale data as interval instead of ordinal? Consequently, analyze data by descriptive statistics, given that this relatively captures the nuances, though with unequal intervals. Well, let me just answer this question. Number one, whether a 7-point scale is a Likert scale, the answer is yes, it is, because the idea in larger scale is not the number itself. It just needs to be an odd number. Okay. For example, if you have four scales, a 4-point scale is not a Likert scale. So the spirit of Likert is that you have a middle point, so much so that you have the same number to the left and the same number to the right. Okay, good. That's the first part of the answer. The second part is data as interval instead of ordinal. شوف, whether you consider the data that you have scored on a Likert scale as ordinal or as interval will heavily depend on what you want to make of this data. Just imagine you want to establish some sort of correlation between the student's motivation and the score in a given course. The score is by definition a continuous variable. So it's a good idea, it's more judicious to consider the variable of, did I say motivation? Yes, motivation. Even if you score it on apparently on a Likert scale, you can convert it into an interval scale. How can you do this? Very simply, we know that a variable like motivation can be captured in terms of a number of items, okay? And on SPSS, there is a function called compute variable, where you ask the computer to add up item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5, as many items as there are for the variable of motivation, and the computer will do the calculations for you. And the computer will reproduce a variable called motivation. This variable that is called motivation, because it has added up, for example, student 1 says on question 1 that he strongly disagrees, you give him 1, and then and for question 2, you give him 2. For question 3, 4, for example, so 2 plus 1 plus 4 plus 5, as many additions as there are items, and you add them up, you may get, for example, student 1 got 33 or 24. Here it becomes a scale variable as well. Conclusion, Si Mohammed. Yes, a 7-point scale instead of 5 is still a Likert scale. Your data, on the face of it, it's an ordinal data, but you can convert it into interval data, depending if that's exactly what your hypothesis is after. Your hypothesis or hypotheses is after. If you are looking for a correlation or comparison, or even if you want to run linear or regression, any type of regression, then of course you will be called upon to convert these variables that are otherwise ordinal into, continuous data or interval data. Okay. Thank you, Natalie. Mohammed Al-Zraq, yes, I think I have answered you. So descriptive statistics, let descriptive statistics be your last resort. If you think you can handle differential statistics, and if you think your hypothesis is targeting the characteristic of a population, then why on earth are you going to use descriptive statistics? That's tantamount to missing a golden opportunity to market your thesis, your study. You have to market it by saying that the conclusions have been reached on solid grounds. What solid grounds? It's because you have had this capacity of generating, conclusions about the population based on the conclusions of the sample. If you are conducting, for example, action research just for you because you want to know about the characteristics of your classroom, if you coordinate, for example, a module and you want to know to have numerical evidence for a given characteristic, then you are right. You can use descriptive statistics without any problem. But for a piece of research at the doctoral level, for example, then the default choice needs to be the use of inferential statistics. Descriptives are just a first step, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Good. Say Mustafa Moshid, English phonetics and phonology, a practical tool, but yes, that one too. Yes. Peter Roach is a very good one. I think it's relatively recent. Yes. Workbook in generative phonology by Sanford Chain. Yeah. For Sanford Chain, apart from the workbook, there is a course book, a textbook. It's called Generative Phonology. But the problem with Chain, the book is just a booklet. It's a very small one, but very condensed. So I think that so I would advise now for Sanford Chain, for someone who knows what a phoneme is, who knows about complementary distribution, who knows about rule ordering. Yes, they can. For example, features. They can go and rechain without any problem. But for someone who is making his or her first step in phonology, Francis Katamba, for me, that's my own judgment. I may be wrong. I have not read Roach because I am old school. Maybe I read that a long time ago. But I browsed through it. It's a very interesting one. The one I find very easy, even in the language, it's you will not struggle with expressions that are complex and very straightforward. That's the one. It's Introduction to Phonology by Francis Katamba. Okay, nice. Leila says, regarding research, as someone who wants to start a research about subject in the learning and development field while studying at home, how should I start and what framework to use? Leila, I'm afraid your question is not clear enough to me. About a subject in learning. You meant subject means the topic, because I'm confused with the subject of, for example, the acquisition of the subject. Subject, you mean topic. Let me assume that this is, okay? Let me assume that you are looking for a topic in the area of learning and development field. While studying at home, how should I start? What framework should I use? It's really difficult because they are not difficult for you, but difficult for me to answer you because there are many approaches. That's number one. And when you mention the area very broadly, what happens? Which way to go? Because there are so many ways you can handle this. Learning is very broad. That's number one. Learning of what? For what purposes? What approach to learning are you going to use? These are all questions that come to mind when you think of learning and development. How do you define development? Is it the development like the developmental path that people go through in the course of learning, or development in the economic sense, or I really don't know. But so here, you need to delimit. You need to narrow down. You need to narrow down these two concepts of learning and development. That's the first step. You ask me, how should I start? Answer: start by asking yourself a question: which aspect of learning, which aspect of development? Make it clear. Okay? Because when you narrow down this topic, you will certainly find people who have written enough literature on this, and that will be a very good starting point. Do not panic. Do not get stressed. Take it easy. Go on a step-by-step basis. Leila, I'm talking to Leila H here. And then, you can, I don't know if you have a supervisor or is it independent research. I really don't know, but check again with your supervisor so that you can narrow down this topic. Leila H, if you have more specific questions in this regard, you can ask. You can ask. So here you have my objective from it is mainly to strengthen my learnings. Ah, okay, good. So in this case, there is a theory. There's a theory that that is an offshoot of generative grammar, which is called learnability theory. So just go and read about learnability. Okay, learnability theory in generative grammar. Layla, since you need this just for your to strengthen your learning, as you said, and to broaden your knowledge in the field, but that's a very good thing. Or approaches to learnability. Just type this, approaches to learnability, and then you will have a whole host of publications and articles that explain this phenomenon. All right, good. Do we still have questions here to ask, to answer? Or should we go to distinctive features? A sip of water will break this silence. Okay. Please make sure you hit the like button and you share the link with the people you think will find this interesting enough. Okay, that's how the channel will keep thriving, will blossom in the world of YouTube. Okay, especially that there are, we should not talk about that, but there are more futilities than serious things, on YouTube, on our YouTube, of course. How to be a good writer? I am talking about academic writing. Si Mustafa Morshi, very interesting question indeed. A very interesting question. There are, to the best of my knowledge and given my experience, ladies and gentlemen, Si Mustafa is asking a very crucial question, a question that has to do directly with your academic future. Look, failure to be a good writer amounts to failure to get to be a good researcher and failure to pursue your studies later on. Many people, many researchers are short circuited by their lack of enough writing skill. So, if there is one thing one has to be cautious of, it's writing, academic writing. Well, for academic writing, there is advice that I give to S3 students, but there is also advice that I give to maybe students at higher level. For S3 students, what is the problem? The problem is that they do master a form of English, spoken English, namely because of the video games, they interact with people in different languages, especially in English. They watch, films subtitled in English, and they do, and many of them, let's face the fact, talk to people, whose mother tongue is English. So here we generally don't have a problem when it comes to the spoken word, when it comes to spoken English. The problem is in writing, and students struggle to draw this demarcation line between the two. That's one thing. Now, for advanced people, advanced students, by advanced students, I'm talking about students at the master's and at the doctoral level. A very good start is when you read a text, an academic text, for example, in research methodology or whatever, or in cultural studies, you read from the point of view of a writer. What does this mean? So when you read, do not just look for the information. Also, look at how the idea is exploited, how the idea is presented, how conclusions are drawn, how examples are introduced. Think of how examples are introduced. Think of how conclusions are drawn. Think of how the topic sentence is formulated. Okay? I will not hide it from you, there are certain expressions that you may even take and jot down and use them as soon as possible in a piece of writing. You see? This way, because this is built block by block, a piece of writing needs to be, so apart from this, there is the factor number 2, revision. If there is one thing that can be said, or that can be called a salient feature of good writing, it's cyclic nature. Writing is not linear. It means what? It means that unlike speech, writing needs to be revisited. Writing needs to be revisited. If it's not revisited, you will have a problem there. Somewhere there will be a problem of some nature. There are occasions when I produce paragraph or an essay and I praise myself that I produced this. When I wake up in the morning, I say, well, how stupid I was. Why did I write this? Think عقلي. How can I? How did I manage? How dare I write things like these? So this revision is necessary, especially if someone does this consciously, because over time it becomes automatic. Of course, we should not deny the fact that there are people, real masters of the English language who can produce, who talk like a book, so that if they just type what they produce, you will have a good text that needs just minor revisions, okay? But for someone who embarks on academic writing, excuse me, you cannot write this at one go. If it's something that is long term, like a paper or a thesis, when you finish with chapter 1, for example, and you think that it's there, it's a very good chapter, it's nice, my friend, you have to come back to it, because you will certainly find what to change and what to modify. And it's very normal. All right. So that's point two. Point one is to put yourself in the shoes of the writer. You read from the point of view of a writer. Number two, a piece of work has to be revisited. That's why we're talking about the learning process, because it has shown that you need drafting, you need to edit in stage, there are stages, of course, in writing. It means what? It means writing is not something that is linear. You start from point A, and once you reach point B, you put a full stop and you go home. No, there are things. Revisions can be at the level of ideas, at the level of how your thought is organized, about how clear you are, because if a piece of writing is not clear, it does not read well. And therefore, even if you use sophisticated vocabulary, that does not necessarily qualify as a good piece of writing. Okay? Then number 3, feedback. You need some feedback. If you give feedback to yourself, I'm sorry, you need another eye. You need another eye, either from the supervisor, or from your peers. Perhaps I'm repeating myself here, but I have time and again insisted on the fact that when you produce a piece of writing, for example, an article that you intend to publish, or a chapter or section from your thesis, give it to people, my friend. Give it to someone to look at, and you can do the same. Scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, as the proverb goes. It's a win-win situation. So just give what you have written to your friend. Your friend will give you what he or she has written, and then you give feedback. Okay? So feedback is necessary, and that's the basic element there that can keep us moving on. Because when you give me feedback, if you use the right pen, for example, I will make sure that when I write again, I will pay attention to those mistakes. Okay, this is in general. There are details, of course, Mustafa, that I will come to, because I promised that we will start a series of, it's just that this is a very hectic fortnight for me. Fortnight means 2 weeks. A lot of, as a jury member, in a number of theses. So I serve as a jury member in a lot of theses, some of which will be defended soon in different places, in the habilitation for the colleagues who are assistant professors. And, I'm busy with preparation for the exam. And later on, I'm expecting, a lot of papers to correct. And You see, there are a lot of activities, plus the research part, of course. There are articles, unfinished articles that I'm working on, and so on and so forth. You see, so we will start a series of writing, lessons. So, academic writing lessons, of course, and I hope you will find it interesting. Okay. Chernobyl says learning development is a branch of human resource management. Okay, now, sorry, before Chernobyl, there was Leila who made her point clear. Learning and development as a branch of human resource development. Again, in that case, you need to, if you do some internet research, you need to supplement this research. You need to specify it by saying that it has to do with the human resource. Otherwise, it will lead you to something else. This is nice. I mean, it's clear now. All that you need to do is to consult the different models, because each concept, each area, like the one you have mentioned, is treated using different models. Why different models? What is it that makes models fleshed out every now and then? It's because the previous model has limitations, and on the basis of the limitation, another model is born. So you can start by doing some basic research, and you stick to one area, Leila. Since you're doing that for your learning, stick to one single area, small sub area, in fact, or topic, and you read about it, and you see how knowledgeable about it you will become. Chernobyl says, hello, professor. I hope you're doing well. Can you provide us with some information about linguistics essays and how we deal with the components? Very good. Linguistics essays. Okay. Can you listen to me, please? Linguistics essays are no different from essays. What's the difference? The difference is that instead of talking about divorce, of what's your opinion about this, you will talk about, the content will be linguistics. The form is the same. Otherwise, why do you think you are taught as composition 1, composition 2, advanced writing? It's to show to you what a typical essay is. Of course, we base this on discussion of social phenomena. Sometimes you are asked to describe, sometimes you are asked to compare, sometimes you are asked to argue, but with topics that are, known to everyone, like social phenomena. Why do we do that? Why do we insist on the notion of a thesis statement? Why do we insist on the notion of a topic sentence? Why do we insist on supporting information and its development and its illustration? Why is it that the conclusion has to have a specific shape? Why is it that the introduction has to have a specific shape? It's because this is some sort of a caliber, okay, that can apply to all areas of knowledge. As long as it is called an essay, it has to have this shape. Therefore, if you're doing sociolinguistics, for example, and your professor asks you to answer a question in the form of an essay, what do you think the shape of the essay should look like? My friend, it's no different from the essay that you did in S3. Meaning what? Meaning that you start your introduction in a funnel-like shape. That is to say, you start with general ideas. Of course, the content should be linguistics, like modern linguistics has evolved into, I don't know. You see, and then you narrow down a little bit until you reach the point where you will answer the question in the form of this statement. You have written a successful introduction when you do this. And then when you start developing the rest, you finish the introduction and you start developing the paragraphs, make sure that every paragraph that you develop has a reflection in a part of your thesis statement. If this is my thesis statement, okay, now this is my thesis statement because it's bigger. This is my thesis statement. This is a paragraph. Okay, this topic sentence for paragraph 1 has to reflect something here. For example, there are, variables like, let's say, in sociolinguistics, language change heavily depends on variables like social status, gender, educational level. Imagine I mentioned this in the thesis statement. So in this paragraph, I have to treat one aspect that I mentioned in the thesis statement. For example, I will reserve it just to gender. The other one is about social class. That's an autonomous, independent paragraph, but it's still reflected in this thesis statement. and so on and so forth. So you need as many paragraphs as there are, elements in your thesis statement. Okay, so we are done with the introduction. The paragraphs, as I said, need to have a topic sentence. I repeat, your paragraphs, whatever the essay, wherever you are. So as long as you are asked to write an essay, do it in this fashion. So every single paragraph should start with a topic sentence, and that topic sentence should be a reflection of something in the thesis statement. If it's not, you will incur a problem of coherence. You see? Now, this is the global view. Now, locally, inside the paragraph, and here is where a mistake comes. The mistake comes, and I told my students just 1 week ago, that when you are asked to answer something in the form of a paragraph, be it in syntax, phonology, morphology, whatever, you should not look at this. Some students, this is based on the exams I have corrected and the essays I have corrected so far in the paragraphs as well. You ask them to answer in the form of a paragraph. We say that on purpose because we want to see a paragraph first. If you answer, even if it's correct, but if it's not in the form of a good paragraph, then there is something missing. Of course, it's not 100% correct. But why are you going to lose points, my friend? Just stick to what a good paragraph is, and you will know. So some students come up with a form of a topic sentence when they are asked to write a paragraph, and then they say first, and then they say something, and immediately after they say second, and then they say third, fourth, fifth, I don't know. They provide snapshots of ideas from here and there in support of the topic sentence. While this can be mildly acceptable, it's not a good way. It's not the best way, at least. Why? I'd rather, أدور point, if your topic sentence talks about 5 reasons for something. Topics احنا في الباراجراف ده ياك. If there are 5 points to support your topic sentence in a paragraph, which is better? Is it to show, to flout your knowledge and show that you know all the 4 points, but you mention them just as snapshots and you jump from one point to a point and they say, therefore, you conclude and you go? Or is it better, for example, to focus only on 3 letters, and these 3 need to be elaborated and illustrated? In linguistics, my friends, a successful paragraph is where you can see examples. Don't talk in the air like that. Do not assume. That's the mistake. The mistake that some students make is that they assume that the teacher knows. They knows, of course, that's true. But you have to assume that the teacher does not know anything about the topic. You have to assume that the teacher knows only English. Okay? So instead of saying there are 5 blah, 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 you say there are at least 3. Look at the word at least. It's a strategy. Okay? At least means there are more. Yes, there are more. So at least 3 means you will focus on the 3. When you write first, blah, 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 you make a point. You try to write another sentence where you elaborate on what you said before, put a full stop, write, for example, or for instance, introduce a concrete example. Only then would it be possible for you to go to the second point and you say second, etc. But mentioning things in a succession, in a rapid succession, come on, or full stop, second, third, it has to be, there needs to be some prose. You're not just writing bullet points. You see, there needs to be some flesh in the paragraph. So a typical paragraph, a good paragraph in linguistics, is one that contains a topic sentence, which needs to be, if it's an essay, it has to be a reflection of the thesis statement. But if the professor asks you to write just a paragraph, then you don't care. Just produce a paragraph that reflects the question. By the way, the topic sentence that reflects the question. Your topic sentence has to reflect the question. One of the criteria of a successful topic sentence is whether it answers the question or not. Some students try uh, to produce a topic sentence that they think relates to the question, but they end up going, in a different direction. A good example is, for example, when you just last week, I asked my students to write about a topic, my S3 students, and the question was, should parents, I think it was, yeah, should children obey their parents all the time? Yes, many of them, of course, and wrote good essays, but there were some, for example, who would produce a thesis statement like children should have a degree of autonomy. If you take this sentence independently, autonomously, isolate it from, take it out of that introduction, read it, you will realize that it has nothing to do with the question. Because when you say children have to act autonomously and independently, while you mean that they should not obey their parents all the time, no, it's not a guarantee that when they are autonomous, they may obey their parents all the time, but they can still be autonomous. I hope you understand me. Meaning that you have to be very careful. You can be your own corrector. You can judge your own paragraph, your own thesis statement, or topic sentence, or whatever. So if you are asked to write an essay, your thesis statement should reflect the question. Should be a mirror. You should see the question there. You understand? And if it's a paragraph, that's the same thing. Your topic sentence has to reflect the question. Why do languages have phonological processes? Answer: languages have phonological processes for a number of reasons. Very good strategy. Anna, I reflect this. You see, I reflect the topic. In answer to the question as to why languages have phonological processes, and you have a topic sentence like for phonological processes are interesting phenomena, and you've put a full stop, you are not answering the question. واش فهمتوا ولا ما فهمتوش? You see, you have to stick, literally, you stick to the question if you want to be successful and safe. Okay, so let me repeat this. Be faithful to the question. If you are asked to write an essay, your thesis statement should reflect the question clearly, and therefore every topic sentence should reflect your thesis statement. Different paragraphs will reflect different parts of the thesis statement. If you are asked to write a paragraph, obviously your topic sentence has to reflect the question as well. رقم واحد. رقم جوج, if you have a lot of information to cram in a paragraph, it's not a good idea. Why? It's because if you cram seven in pieces of information, 7 points, you will not have enough space, you will not have enough time, you will not have enough nerves, okay, to illustrate and elaborate on each individual point. You will certainly end up either missing out on concrete examples which are necessary anyhow, or missing out on elaboration, or you see, so it's more quality that counts than quantity, because a paragraph, after all, has to come between 8 lines and 12 lines. If you mention this 7 points and you illustrate them, you will end up having 33 lines, which is not a characteristic of a good paragraph at all. Okay, so these are just a few pieces of advice in regard to the to writing essays in linguistics, and I extended this to talk about writing paragraphs in linguistics. Okay. Okay, I'll go back to this. So Chernobyl asked this question. I hope I have answered you, Chernobyl. Mustafa, example, instead of saying something was criticized, one can say criticism has been leveled against. Yes, of course, yes. These are stylistic variations that are that are very much appreciated and recommended also in a piece of academic writing. Hiba Morocco says, so thank you, Si Mustafa Murshid. Now, before Hiba Morocco, there is Mustafa Mohammed Al-Azraq. It is a process by nature. It is through revision, quality attainment, quality is attained, and the skill is exercised. That's why there are multiple drafts. I fully agree with you, Si Muhammad Al-Zarq. Hiba Morocco says, hello, professor. We really miss your sessions. Thank you, Hiba, Hiba Morocco, despite the fact that I don't know who this Hiba Morocco is. But thank you very much. Really nice. My session, is it because you are my student somewhere, or the sessions here, but we will need to find out. Okay. Si Muhammad Al-Zarq says, two heads are always better than one, as the proverb goes. That's true. And we always learn from our peers. Yeah. I will repeat something, the importance of learning from your peers. Yeah, see, it's magic. Wallah, you will learn things that you have not learned for ages when you do that with your colleague, when you, for example, attend his classes. We don't have this culture, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we no longer have it. Not we don't have it, we no longer have it. You see, there. I remember when I started at a very young age, as a teacher in private school, a higher education institution, and I had friends, you see, and we became colleagues there, and we did not have any problem whatsoever attending each other's sessions. But when you attend a session, it's you attend it with a pen and paper. You see, not to learn from them, but to write remarks on how to control body language, how to, about voice. You made a mistake. We don't say it like this. We say it like that. You spend more time on this and on this, etc. And we try to learn, and we are still learning, by the way. All right. So you will learn a lot uh, as teachers, as researchers, as students. Learn from each other, please. Okay. Good. I usually give what I write to Professor Boysen to give me his feedback. This is a very good thing. Although I know, Si Mustafa Murshid, you are a very good writer, but it's good. It's always good to give, even if you are a professional. There is no harm. No, there's no. It's a must to give your draft to someone to read and provide you with feedback on what you have written. Okay. Asma Narjis, good evening, Dr. Amrous. Thank you for your content. We learn a lot from you. All in my course. Thank you very much, Asma. Really kind of you. Thank you. Chernobyl says, can you revise with us how we can write a phonemic rules? Yes, of course. Of course, Chernobyl, I can do that. I have broken the exams into parts. Of course, I will come to do that with you probably tomorrow or after tomorrow. But these days, I'm sure I will do that before the exams. So phonemic rules and how we can deal with the data. Thank you so much. Yes, that's a very legitimate request. I will do that for sure. See Chernobyl. Chernobyl, I don't know if you are a male, see Chernobyl. If you are a female, Miss or Mrs. Chernobyl, all right? Okay. That's the punishment of those who come to us incognito, right? Shayma Rashid says, hello, professor. I hope you're doing well. Could you please recommend some topics for projects in psycholinguistics? Yes, Shayma, there's a vast array of topics that you can, because psycholinguistics itself is very broad. You can go to the area of language processing and you choose an element, for example, idiomatic expressions or a complex rule, and you check its processing. But before you do that, you need to read about the literature and what are the models, what models are there. That model language processing, that's a very nice area. Okay, so in psycholinguistics, you can talk about language processing. You can talk about language acquisition. And in each, of course, there are models. Okay, so just go and check, do some preliminary research and check with your supervisor because the supervisor certainly has ideas about the different topics that are worthy of investigation. So I've just tried to shed some light on this area. So you have language acquisition as a branch, very interesting one. Language development, language processing. Okay. You can also talk about speech disorders. You can talk about aphasia, you can talk about stuttering, you can talk about, there are a lot of things, but you have to select. You see, Shayma Rashid, do some preliminary research and focus on one area, and then you read about it, and I'm sure you will become an expert, inshallah. Si Abdullah Lameen says, Professor, I often, if not almost always, see in this context students, be it at the BA or MA level, while delivering presentations, they project slides depicting big text. No, 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 that's laziness. I'm sorry. That's laziness. A PowerPoint is called PowerPoint because it's about a point that has power. It means what? It means that so the slides need to be there to remind you of what to say, lest you should forget the point. You see, and it helps people follow with you. If this is the purpose, then inserting long texts will not help. Are you there? Are you there to read out what they can find on the internet? What's your point? What's the rationale behind your existence there in the first place? If you will stuff your slides with texts, with references, and with no, that's not the point. Sometimes, and I was talking to a friend here about the slides because she was preparing for a presentation, and she said that I have almost empty slides. I just write some picture. She inserted, there were slides where she inserted just pictures, but that's a very good thing if the pictures serve the purposes of illustrating your point. It's a very good thing. uh, Filling the slides with the text is certainly doomed to failure. People will just smile to you, but they will not be smiling. The smile will not be genuine. Make sure there is no painful torture than being listening to a presentation that you don't like. You know, where you see people, just reading out. Very bad habit. And I wonder why people go to a presentation without doing some rehearsal if they cannot think up ideas and they cannot achieve some spontaneity, then that's not a good thing. It's pointless. Okay. So Abdullah Amin, I hope I have reacted to this in the way I should, because that's the observation I make myself. Do you relate, Professor? What is your advice for those students? Thank you. Do you relate, Professor? And what is your advice? I'm afraid I cannot understand this question. Is it a follow-up to the previous one, Si Abdul Amin? If that's related, then I have answered this question. Okay. Shayma, thank you very much, sir. Si Mustafa Murshid says, what pieces of advice can you give to new doctoral candidates who still don't distinguish between theoretical framework and conceptual framework? They have to do some to make some effort, to read about before they start. Now, here is the advice, Mustafa. Here's the advice. Before I get into, I reach the point where I need to read and to amass and to revise, and I have to know what is required of me first. I have to read about the research process. And the research process is not a one size fits all, a research process in area X. And you may even consult studies and see how they divide their chapters. Studies mean especially, doctoral theses. You see, and, there is the theoretical framework, conceptual framework, review of the literature. One has to know the distinction between these three. Okay? A review of literature means you review critically. By critically means you should not just summarize and put aside and then move and summarize them. That's not what the review is about. In a review of literature, you have to be critical. As you review what so and so said, try to compare it with the other researcher. Try to compare that with your main objective. Try to introduce, critical points, because you react to that after all. You should not feel that you are passive. There are reviews of literature where you see just paragraphs stacked one after another, section after section, sometimes without any sense of coherence there. And later on, they claim to have produced a review of literature. No, no, no. A review of literature necessarily needs to be critical. By critical means involve yourself, my friend, there. Say something about what you have written. Okay, a conceptual framework is where you explain the concepts and their operationalization, the operationalizations. Okay, for example, you talk about the prodrop parameter. Tell us what a prodrop parameter is. That's a conceptual framework. And the review would be what people have said about the acquisition of this, if it's about acquisition, of course. Okay, and the theoretical framework is because each topic, each concept has been treated most of the time, from different angles of vision. These angles of vision are theories, and the theoretical framework is where you justify the theory that you are going to use as an analytical tool and as a descriptive tool and as an explanatory tool as well. Okay, nice. So this is just a brief. We can have other sessions on this, Mustafa. Barraho says, good evening, Professor. Could you please provide us with tips to memorize phonological features? Yes, أنا جاي. Especially for sounds, language we do not know how to pronounce. Thank you in advance. Yes, okay. Okay, very briefly, and this is going to be an introduction because I think we have taken more time than we should here. Apologies to the S5ers here. But at the same time, as I was talking, there were certainly reactions to different questions that might come in use later on in your case, okay? Some of you will soon end up being a master students, so just bear with me. I hope you will not consider it as a waste of time. For phonological features, the first piece of advice that I will repeat in a moment, phonological features are highly rooted in phonetics. So we should know, number one, automatically how to react to a given sound, if you are asked to describe it in terms of phonation, articulation, and the airstream. So we will come to this later on. And of course, for the sounds of languages that you do not know, try to either, make an attempt to pronounce them, or maybe on YouTube you can just give the feature or the name of a sound, and then you will hear the pronunciation. Or even on YouTube you can have that. Okay, good. But more details about this, Barraho, will come in a moment when we discuss the notion of distinctive features in phonology. Okay, so I think it's time now to start our discussion of distinctive features. If you have questions, ladies and gentlemen, please let us know. All right. What are distinctive features in phonology? Okay, what are distinctive features in phonology? Distinctive features come from the idea that when a sound undergoes a change, that is to say, a phonological process, sometimes, or not sometimes, on many occasions, what changes is not the whole sound. For example, when you change p, when a p changes for b, for example, or f for v, what is it that changes? It's not the whole phoneme that changes. Okay, that's number one. Only aspects of the phoneme that undergoes this change. That's number one. Number two, especially with the advent of generativism, generative theory in phonology, articulated mostly in the sound patterns of English, people gave up on the idea of the phoneme. Okay, the minimal unit of analysis in phonology was no longer the phoneme. Why? It's because the phoneme itself consists of, subcomponents, consists of, building blocks. The phoneme is not monolithic. Monolithic means it's not indivisible. No, A long time ago, people thought that the phoneme was indivisible. You know, this, of course, did not. It's not an invention of generativism, but the distinctive features existed long before, with Trubetskoy and with Jacobson, etc. Except that another orientation was given to them in generative phonology. All in all, the notion of distinctive features came from the idea that, contrary to so many people before, the minimal unit of phonological analysis is the phoneme. They said, no, it's not the phoneme. It's the phoneme itself can be broken into sub blocks, into building blocks. These building blocks are what we refer to as a distinctive feature. Why do we call it feature? Why do we call it distinctive? Okay, that's the idea. We call it feature because every sound that we produce, every sound that we produce has characteristics. Okay? It has characteristics that distinguishes it or that distinguish it from another sound. Let's give an example let's give a concrete example outside of phonology just to show these features and the way they are important in phonology. Now, if you compare a Moroccan citizen with maybe a Russian citizen, two different cultures, two different backgrounds, etc., and maybe two different shapes as well, two different habits, systems of beliefs, whatever. Okay, so when you take a Moroccan, you can jot down a number of features that characterize a Moroccan citizen, and you can jot down a number of characteristics that characterize a Russian citizen. So the points that we use to describe the Moroccan are features. Okay, the same thing goes for the Russian. Now, do these two citizens share some of the characteristics? Obviously, yes. For example, both of them are plus human. This is shared. Another example is that both of them have the same anatomy. Fine. Both of them have a head and two eyes and etc. Obviously. But there are certainly characteristics that makes them different. Okay? For example, they speak different languages. Okay? This is a feature. This is a feature that can distinguish a Moroccan from a Russian. So this is a distinctive feature, of course. Okay? Coming back to sounds in phonology. Sounds, yeah, religion, and there are other features that can distinguish the passport, for example, nationality, loyalty to their nations, etc. The Moroccan is loyal to the Moroccan nation, and the Russian, can be loyal to his nation, of course. You see, so here, if we map this, if we bring this to phonology, what do we find out? If we compare, for example, p and b, what is p? P, number one, it's voiceless, isn't it? Yeah, voiceless. P is bilabial. P is a stop. P is an oral sound. Yes or no? Now let's take b. B is also, b is voiced. So here, voice in is a distinctive feature. Why do we call it distinctive feature? Because a sound can become another sound, or can be transformed into another sound just by changing one feature. Okay? And by the way, pack and back. We have two words here. We have a minimal pair. P is a phoneme, B is a phoneme because we have a minimal pair here. So these two words differ not in the phoneme, in one phoneme. No, in one feature. You see? So the difference between pack and back is just one feature. What is this feature? It's the feature of voice in because p and b share everything except for voicing. They share the place, they share orality because they are not nasal. They share manner of articulation, they share everything. But they differ in voicing, which makes, you see, p and b, distinguished on the basis just of one feature. There are, of course, distinctions between phonemes on the basis of maybe two or more features. Okay, now let's go to the other point, to another point. And by the way, the ones who are listening here, especially the ones who made this request, I will, in a moment, I will share the screen for the exercises that I gave you, or we will correct them together. So no problems, because I think I have learned how to share the screen here. Nice. Now, but let's talk about these distinctive features. Distinctive features, ladies and gentlemen, are heavily dependent on how on how well you master phonetics. That's why I told my students at the beginning of the year, my S5ers, although I don't teach phonology, but sometimes I open brackets, and I also tell people even at the level of S1 that phonetics, because I teach spoken English sometimes, and I tell them that phonetics will be with you even at the level of S5 if you opt for linguistics. So a good mastery of phonetics will lead to a good mastery of distinctive features. Why? It's because they are based on articulation. Most of them, I'm not saying all of the features, but most of the features are based on how we articulate a given sound. So we should know how to describe our consonants. We should know how to describe our vowels. If you would like me to open a bracket and talk to you about how to describe consonant and vowel, I can do that. Otherwise, I can have a session on phonetics, on the phonetics of these sounds. But anyway, you should, for example, know whether a sound is voiced or not, whether a sound, what the place of articulation is for a given sound, and what the manner of articulation is. The same thing goes for vowels. You need to know whether or how high the tongue is in the oral cavity and what part of the tongue is involved in the production of a given vowel, and whether there is a lip rounding or not. So if you manage to do this, distinctive features will become very easy. This is an open suggestion to the students here who probably would like me, for example, tomorrow to talk about the phonetics of vowels and consonants. We will also include some consonants that are otherwise difficult to understand because they don't exist in English. I am here to do that with you. There is no problem at all. All that I need are just requests, on Messenger, for example. Just send me a message on Facebook, and I will do it. So if I receive messages of this type from 2 or 3 people, I will reserve tomorrow's live session for the discussion of how to describe vowels and consonants. I will explain, the different places of articulation, different manners of articulation. For example, some people will, they cannot distinguish a fricative from an affricate. And you see, I can do that if you ask me to do it. All right, nice. So now that I have made this point that a good mastery of these distinctive features depends heavily on a good mastery of phonetics. So having said this, I will move on to maybe a discussion of the main types of features. I don't claim that I will talk about everything because we have an exercise anyway that we will attend to, but there are features that are there's one feature that is known as the major split feature. Major split features. Yes, major split features. Before I talk about this, I'll have to refer to Sim Mustafa Morshid's point that features have to be binary, of course. If a consonant is voiced, it cannot be voiceless. So it's either with a plus or with a minus. Features are always marked plus or minus. We cannot have both, of course. Thank you, Mr. Mustafa, for this. So let's start with these major split features. It means what? It means that in speech sounds, there is the major split. There are two families, two big families, in a sense, of types of sounds, and we can distinguish the two just by means of one feature. Consonants and vowels can be distinguished based on one features. Of course, consonants. For semi-consonants, you see, yeah, the semi-consonants here would behave based on these features that we'll talk about. They will behave more like consonants than vowels. This feature is syllabic, plus syllabic minus syllabic. Okay, it means usually, of course, there are exceptions because you will realize that some consonants can have plus syllabic features. We will talk about this anyway. So generally, all vowels are given this feature of plus syllabic. So if you have a data set where you need to say that this feature, okay, and if you want to specify a vowel for a feature to distinguish it from a consonant, all that you need to do is write plus syllabic, okay, instead of plus vowel, okay, plus syllabic. Minus syllabic can mean many consonants, of course. It can mean glides and so glides. Why did I say many consonants and not all consonants? Because the feature plus syllabic means what? It means that the sound that has plus syllabic is a sound that can function as the nucleus of a syllable. Nucleus means what? إذا ما فهمتوش شي حاجة اكتبوا لي هنايا. Nucleus means what? In a syllable typically has three elements. It has a consonant, a vowel, and then a consonant. Many syllables. So let's say that this is an ideal syllable, is where you have a consonant, a vowel, and another consonant. For example, the word put has P as an onset. We call this first consonant an onset. U, the vowel, is a nucleus, le noyau, nawat, and then we have the T, it's called coda. You see? So for the second element, which is the vowel, it necessarily has to be plus syllabic. And plus syllabic means what? Means that this sound that you mentioned, that you specify as plus syllabic, can function as the nucleus of a syllable. ما عمره ما كيكون onset، ما عمره ما كيكون coda. Une voyelle ما عمرها ما كتكون onset. Onset هي le premier élément la syllabe. Okay? Premier élément consonantique. You see, the peak and the coda, Chernobyl, very good. The peak, yes, because it's peak. Because if you use a machine to mark the waves, you will find out the vowels are the loudest. The peak means the loudest. That's true. So all vowels, wherever there is, you can't have, my friends, you cannot have a vowel which is marked minus syllabic. ما كايناش. Do you understand? Of course, sometimes you find that a syllable does not contain any vowel. You know, for example, Moroccan Arabic, we have sirsir. Sirsir means صوني على شي واحد سرسر عليه. Sirsir, there is no vowel. Now, here, the language has opted for the selection of r, which is the liquid, okay, to be the peak of the syllable. Sir, like this. There are some analyses that says, well, there is a schwa vowel or a shva vowel that is inserted there to function as the peak of a syllable, but we can say here that the r of sirsir in the two syllables are plus syllabic because they can function as the peak of the syllable. Of course, this will depend on the analysis. Now, let's take the word syllable itself in English. See, le, bo. In C, you have E, so it's the peak. Le, you have E. بالحق, bull, the syllable, the last one, there is no vowel. What's the solution here? It means that we have a syllable here in C. C, le, bull. Bull is a syllable, okay, that does not have a vowel. So it does not have a peak. It does not have a nucleus. However, the language has, in the absence of a vowel, the language chooses, okay, a sonorant. We call it a sonorant because it has a loud, it's louder. It chooses l and calls it a syllabic vowel. So in this case, l in syllable is plus syllabic. All in all, just to finish this, all vowels have the feature of plus syllabic. I repeat, wherever there is a vowel in a syllable, it has the feature of plus syllabic. Consonants generally are minus syllabic, but there are some situations in some languages where some consonants, if you have a syllable without a vowel that you cannot see, then the nearby consonant is or takes the feature of plus syllabic, okay? And this functions as the nucleus of the peak or the peak of the syllable. Okay, so we have finished with this. I'll just browse through the features that I think are problematic, but of course we can discuss others in the exercise. Of course, you have the second feature. The second general feature is to distinguish sounds that are articulated via the oral cavity from the sounds that are articulated through the nasal cavity. Oral cavity means mouth. Nasal cavity means nose. Okay? So nasals like m, n, etc., these are called plus nasal sounds. For example, m is plus nasal, n is plus nasal, but b is minus nasal, and t and d are minus nasal. So the sounds that do not find their way out through the nose are called minus nasal. Okay? Nice. So yes, Mustafa says about vowels that they are sung. Yes, but in some situations, in the absence of vowels, in some situations, in some languages, vowels, when they are absent, some consonants, get their place. Okay? Get in the place of the vowel, but these consonants should follow a sonority order. For example, because vowels are the loudest, الفوايل ما كايناش, we need to look for the next loudest, which is a sonorant, like a nasal or a liquid or whatever. Okay, good. So let's move on to the plus nasal, minus nasal. So if I give you the sound ng, for example, like good morning, what's the difference between ng and g? They share everything except the feature nasal. Ng is plus nasal, g is minus nasal. So nasality is an important feature. Of course, some vowels like a, the a of cat, these are not nasal vowels. They are not nasalized. But you have bien, that's a nasal vowel. It's not nasalized, it's nasal. Why? It's because you say like cat, but what you allow at the same time. That's the difference between French and English. In French, some vowels are like bien, like bon, on. When you say on, it's different from saying o. O is what? Is a vowel that involves a blockage at the level of the nasal cavity. There is a velic closure, okay, in O. But when you say bon, the velum lowers, here it lowers, and the air is allowed through the nose. So bon is a nasal vowel. Beau, just beau, il fait beau, ça. Donc, tu es bon, tu es bon, bon. You say, le repas est bon, un bon repas, مزيان, bon, on, the vowel is nasal. بالحق, ambogos, when the weather il fait beau, for example, O هنايا is not nasal. So as you can see, even vowels can be plus nasal or minus nasal. Consonants can be plus nasal or minus nasal. All right, good. So let's move on to the other features. Yes, of course, most of the features relate to voicing and manner. I think we discussed that. But there are some features in manner that I would like to describe, to talk about. You know that in consonants, there are two families again. In consonants, we have two families. We have, on the one hand, obstruents, and we have sonorants. What are obstruents and what are sonorants? Sonorants are the consonants, but the sonorants are consonants. These consonants, by the way, they all need to be voiced. هذا رقم واحد. There is no sonorant which is voiceless. Sonorant, in the word sonorant, there is the word sonore, sonorisation. Okay? Le son. It means they are loud. When you compare, for example, B with M, M is louder. Why? It's because the air passes through the nose and there is more room for making, the sound more loud. Oh, more loud, I'm sorry. Oh my God. Louder, okay? When you say Y, Y is like a vowel. Y سميتو semi-vowel. We also call it U and I are glides. Glides are also called semi-vowels. So, je répète. I am talking now about the word sonorant. Sonorants are sounds, especially consonants, but vowels are also sonorant by nature. Why? Because they are characterized by a loud voice. Okay? The next loud voice, a sound, for example, that is louder than a vowel is what? Is a glide. The glides are أقرابين. Glides they are called semi-vowels, so they are logically closer to the vowel. They stand midway, so they are very loud. U is what is a glide, and therefore it's a sonorant. So sonorants فيهم الglides, yeah, sonorant consonants فيهم الglides. فيهم liquids like L and R because they are loud. Okay, glides, liquids, nasals. Glides, liquids, nasals, these three are what? They are sonorant sounds. علاش? Why do we call them sonorants? Because their pronunciation is louder than the pronunciation of the other consonants. Like P. When you say P, P is very small. When you say B, even if there is vibration, it's not like saying M. B, M. Just pronounce it with very objectively. Just take some time now and pronounce B, M. B, M. You will find that the M is always louder. Okay, so it's a sonorant. Sonor. All right. So we have obstruent sonorants. Obstruents are what? Are voiced and voiced. All voiceless consonants are minus sonorants. When you have stops and fricatives and affricates, yes, M is noisy. Thank you. See, yeah, that's true. So I repeat this. We are now distinguishing between obstruents and sonorants. An obstruent sound is a sound that includes stops that are voiceless, هما voiceless stops, fricatives, and then affricates. هادو ماشي sonorant because you say ch, j, b, t. It's not like saying m, l, r. They are very loud. Okay? So if I have the sound l or r, شنو هو هذا الساوند؟ It's a liquid. كندير له plus sonorant. P is minus sonorant. B is minus sonorant. اوكي دونك نعاود في لي كونسون في لي كونسونانت غير باش تفهموا ماي فريندز سبيشلي اللي عندهم امتحان. في لي كونسون حنا لا فويال خليها صافي انا فين هنايا. الكونسونانتس اللي هما سونورنت عندي و اند اي، عندي الجلايدز، liquids، nasals. نعاود glides، liquids، nasals. هادو sonorant. علاش؟ because they are closer to the vowel when it comes to loudness. affricates، voiceless stops، fricatives هادو no. حتى voiced stops but they are not sonorant. They are just okay obstruents. بالحق when I want to specify, it's more natural, more normal, more common to specify the feature of obstruent instead of calling it plus obstruent. It's better to call it minus sonorant. Okay, so use minus sonorant to describe stops, fricatives, affricates, voiced or voiceless. Use plus sonorant to describe nasals, liquids, glides. All right, thank you. We can make music with sonorants. Yes, of course, we can make music like sonorants. If you want to sing the word syllable, syllable, you can do that without any problem. Okay, nice. So let's move on to the next feature. Unless you have questions, اللي عنده شي سؤال يحطوه هنا يعافاكم. My friends, especially my S5ers who are about to have an exam on this. Okay. Yeah, there is another distinction that is made between two types of sounds. أنا كنمشي لهذوك الفيتشرز اللي شوية غادي يقدروا يخلقوا يعني problems of understand it, but we will solve the problem here. No worries. We have coronals and anteriors. Plus coronal, plus anterior, and minus coronal, minus anterior. What are coronal sounds? A coronal sound is a sound that is علاش سميناه coronal؟ لأن when you know why, it's better. باش نعرفوا علاش. باش we will remember things easily when we know why. We remember things easily when we know why. Coronal comes from la couronne, and la couronne means the crown. Well, initially, now it's the crown. Yeah, the crown. And la couronne, the doctor will say il faut couronner la dent. Couronner, نكورونيها يعني بحال اللي كنحط عليها شي تاج هكا. La couronne. And you have, you have la couronne, you know that, couronne, and you have the coronavirus. Why is it called corona? Because its shape is like the crown, taj haka. Okay, and that's why in Arabic some people call it الفيروس تاجي. Okay, so شنو هو coronal sound? Coronal sound means that it's pronounced by means of the blade of the tongue. شنو هي علاش blade of the tongue? Because the blade of the tongue, if you get your tongue out, سي مصطفى ما سمعنا بهذا في آبائنا الأولين ياك. Okay, so this is etymology is very good. So a coronal, if you take your tongue, if you draw your tongue, you will have something like this. Look. No, okay. So it's like my hand here. Look. The tongue, this is the tip and this is the blade. Actually, اسمه coronal, c'est la couronne ديال la langue. So when this part of the tongue, the blade of the tongue, the edge of the tongue, the outer edge of the tongue touches what we call the passive articulator, we know, we are sure that the sound that is produced is a plus coronal. For example, can I say that m is plus coronal? Answer, no. Why? Because m is produced by the lips. It's not produced by the tongue, let alone by the blade of the tongue. When I say k, is it plus coronal? Answer, no, it's not. K is not plus coronal. Why? Because if you want to produce a coronal, you use the blade of the tongue. When you say k, you use the body of the tongue. Now, can I say th is a coronal? The answer is yes, because when you produce th, you are using the blade of the tongue. Can I say t is a coronal? Yes, it's a coronal because you use the blade of the tongue. Can I say that sh and j are plus coronal? Yes, they are plus coronal. Is that fine? So they are coronal sounds, and n is a coronal, m is not a coronal. What is a coronal sound? A coronal sound is a sound that is produced by means of the blade of the tongue. You see? Nice. Okay. So we will come to these things. عندنا exercice هنا. I hope that we will find these features later on. Okay. So let's move on to the other feature, which is the feature called anterior. Anterior. Antérieur. The opposite of anterior is posterior. Posterior means at the back of the mouth. Anterior at the front part of the mouth. Where does the part of the mouth start and where does it end? The front part of the mouth starts with the palate. The palate. Okay? So if you produce something at the level of the palate or at the level of يعني من البالate لبرا, from the palate outwards. The ماشي palate, I'm sorry. Yeah, the hard palate, yes, the hard palate, yes. So sh and j and t, we have gone one step forward. T because it's the alveolar ridge. Th احنا خارجين. Th is interdental. M is even the outermost, okay, consonant. So these consonants that are produced at the outer part of the mouth, that is to say from the hard palate onwards or outwards, are called anterior. Anterior, the opposite of posterior, اللي هم الداخل. You understand or no? So if I just want to use these features plus coronal and plus anterior, let's play a game here. M. يلا, use plus anterior plus coronal. M is plus anterior minus coronal. علاش? Because when we say M, we are producing it with the outer part of the mouth, so it's antérieur, ماشي posterior. You see? But at the same time, we do not use the blade of the tongue because M is made by the tongue. So M is what? Is plus anterior minus coronal. Can I try with the B? The same thing. Minus coronal plus anterior. How about the interdental th? Th. Is it anterior? Yes, it is anterior. علاش it is anterior? Because it's the outer part of the mouth. احنا كنحسبه من الهارد بالات outward. Th is anterior, it's plus anterior. Can we say that th is plus anterior plus coronal? Yes. Why? It's because in producing th, we need this front part of the tongue. How about t? Yes, it's plus anterior plus coronal. Okay? N plus anterior plus coronal. And so on and so forth. I hope you, thank you, Simon. It's always good to explain to students why a concept is called, because it helps also in understanding. كان اللي غادي يسمع كورونا غياخذها يقدر يدير بها لي زيكزارسيس وهذا يقدر ينسى. But when you mention things, when you explain the origin of the word, you open brackets, understanding is almost guaranteed there. Okay, good. Coronal, and you have another feature, which is the feature of plus delayed release. Delayed release. Delayed release as a feature was invented to distinguish affricates from other sounds. When you see delayed release, understand that you have an affricate. When you have an affricate and you want to distinguish it from the non-affricate counterparts like stops, then you have to use plus delayed release. Okay? In Moroccan Arabic, and I talked about this with a number of students, in Moroccan Arabic, there is a phenomenon in progress, which has to do with the production of the t sound in Moroccan Arabic, which is moving to the tendency of being pronounced as ch. You see, especially among the youth. Okay, تعلمت, it's a ch. It's no longer a t. what has changed here if you want to provide a phonological account for this? All that we have is a minus delayed release becoming a plus delayed release because we had t that became ch. It's delayed release. Okay, so when a t becomes a ch, that's delayed release. Okay, I mean, you specify the structural. What do you call that? Structural description, structural change. You describe the structural change with plus delayed release. Okay, so you have, sir, could you please explain briefly how vowels are classified as high and low? Yes, I will do that, Sidi Alawi. I'm coming to this. If I forget, Mr. Alawi, please let me know. Just remind me, but I would like to finish these points and then I'll get back to that. All right, so here the we're talking about the feature plus delayed release, and this can distinguish a lot of sounds in a lot of languages. For example, if you want to say horse in German, then it's not part anymore. In Dutch, it's part. In German, it's Pferd. Pferd. It's Pferd. And this Pferd is not Pferd, it's not Pferd, it's a Pf sound. And Pf is like Ch. So it's also an affricate, and therefore it needs the feature to be specified. So as you move from Dutch to German, in the pronunciation of some words like apple, which becomes apfel, and part, which becomes Pferd, you need to this descriptive device of plus delayed release. Why? Because we have the consequence is that is an affricate. It's an affricate. All right, good. When in the variety of Amazigh known as tarifit, for example, when the latter liquid l geminates, that is to say, it doubles. Okay, l, like we have a word in Arabic like sillim alayh. In tarifit is sijib, and l here is becoming j. It's a process of affrication. So we are moving from minus delayed release to plus delayed release, but there are, of course, other changes at stake in this regard. So I have given you a number of examples from 3 or 4 languages that explain this marvelous feature of delayed release. And this is just to be put between brackets for those of you who are keen on knowing this. It is said that historically, affricates are just one station. It's a midway station between the journey, in a journey that the sound takes. It's a mid station between a stop and a fricative. It means that it's a preparation for the fricative nature of the sound that will, turn out to be the case after some time. By some time, I mean, so it can be a considerable amount of time. And even in Moroccan Arabic now, the ch sound is in some, I heard that on many occasions, is becoming a pure sh in fast speech among some. That's just something I wanted to put between brackets. Now, let's move to the feature. This feature is a feature that is the point of disagreement, but I am here to clarify this to some extent. Well, anyway, I will give you, it's a safety blanket anyway. It's the feature, what is it that distinguishes, for example, s, or th from th from f. Both of them are fricatives apart from place. Both of them are anterior. Of course, one of them is plus coronal, the other is minus coronal, but there is another thing that distinguishes them. It's the fact that in a sound like, look at this, s, th, not th, s and f, all of these sounds that I have pronounced are continuant sounds. I have to mention continuant first. I'm sorry. Let me go back to continuant and then I move to this feature. What is continuant? What is continuant? A continuant consonant, a continuant sound, let's talk about continuant sound, is a sound that involves 3 flow of the air through the oral cavity. سترول يعلى the oral cavity. For example, P is a stop. When I say I am blocking the air, so it's minus continuant. K is a stop, minus continuant. Th is a fricative, so the air flows. I do not block it, so it's plus continuant. V, f, th, or these are all plus continuants. المشكل فين كاين? There are some students who would say, for example, that the nasal m is also plus continuant because when I say m, the air flows through the nose. No, continuant is concerned with the flow of the air through the oral cavity, not through the nasal cavity. So m is a minus continuant. Okay, b minus continuant. F, v, etc. are plus continuant because in pronouncing them, the air flows through the oral cavity. So I hope I have made these things clear. So let's move on to the other one, which is the feature. Look at this in continuant sounds, like some fricatives. There is a little distinction. Some fricatives are again pronounced with a loud voice. Other fricatives are relatively small. Where is this problem? Where does this problem come from? This distinction comes from sometimes, in pronouncing a fricative, we feel that the air is pushed upwards. Some fricatives involve the air, that is pushed just straight. When I say, for example, f, because I bring my lower lip to the teeth, the air is pushed somehow upward. It does not come like this. The consequence of this is that the sound is louder than th and the. The f. We are more likely to be heard by when we pronounce the than we pronounce just the. Okay, so f and the, as opposed to th and the, they have a difference in terms of their, audibility. They are more audible when you say f and v than th and the. And the reason, the articulatory reason, is that when you say f and v, the air is pushed upwards. The same thing when you use when you say s and sh. حتى هادو باسكو هنا the tongue the tongue moves upward. S, we raise the tongue. F, we raise the lip. But th, we put it just between the teeth and we blow. Okay? So when the air is pushed upward, generally the sound is more audible. And we call these sounds, we refer to them as strident, a strident feature. These are plus strident. Th and the, they are of course plus continuant بحالهم بحال f and v, but what distinguishes them is that f and v are plus strident. The others are minus strident. Okay, now let's move on to the other feature. This is just a very brief revision of these distinctive features. Yes, and then I come to Yalawi's question. This has to do with the feature back. It's this feature plus back, minus back. Sometimes it's disturbing to some students. While the feature back typically refers to the back vowel, like u, for example, like o, u, and then a, the vowels that are pronounced with the back part of the tongue. These are called back vowels. Except that the feature back, except that the feature back can describe even consonants that are produced at the back part of the mouth. For example, q, the q sound, القاف and الحاء and العين in Arabic, these are all plus back. And kh is also plus back. Okay? So u, o, and then a, and then q, and then ha, all of these are what? These are plus back. So backness, the feature backness, describes not only vowels but also consonants. And I think we have an example. No, in a data set that we will correct tomorrow, I guess. In tomorrow's live or in after tomorrow's live, anyway, as you will see. Okay, so backness. Backness can affect consonants and vowels alike, but in phonetics we know that backness is a characteristic of vowels. But what is interesting in phonology is the fact that there are some features that can group consonants and vowels because they form what is called the natural class. We have not talked about that. We will. There is the other feature, the feature of labiality. Labial. Again, the feature labial does not concern only vowels that are rounded, as distinguished from the ones that are not rounded. Sometimes they describe also consonant that involves the use of the lips. So, m, what does m and w share? And u, إلى عندك مثلا u, w, m, and f. All of these sounds, on the face of it, they belong to different categories, but they share this feature. What is it? It's labiality plus labial. F, w, o, these are plus labial features. As you can see, some features can group vowels and consonants, because they share it. So Mustafa says, these features even have implications. For example, it was found by Jennifer Jenkins that some sounds like th, as in think, are not important as they don't cause problems of international communication. But this may not be a purely phonetic statement on the part of this author, C. Mustafa Murshid. You see, some sounds can be studied, from a sociolinguistic perspective, from an acquisition perspective, a communication perspective, but phonetically, they submit to the rules, regardless of whether they are important or not, especially that sounds like th are known as marked sounds because they are rare compared to the other sounds. And in many parts of the world, the sound th is replaced by f. In Tunisia, for example, our Tunisian friends would say fim, and also in Hassania, fim instead of thimma or timma, which comes from thimma. Okay, and in the Holy Quran, you have wafumiha wa adasiha wa basaliha. Wafumiha is wathumiha, and one interpretation is that the pharaohs did not have this th sound. Okay, it was f. So a non-strident became a strident. Okay, nice. So the corpus is called LF. Well, thank you very much. I would love to be introduced to this, C. Mustafa. The corpus linguistics is an area I admit I have not studied enough, just bits and pieces on the surface. Thank you very much. Yes, sibilant, at least in, it's more of a categorizing term than a feature, Nathalie Leblanc. So we are unlikely to specify plus sibilant. Yeah, it exists as a feature, but we can account for sibilants also by means of other consonants, unless Nathalie Leblanc, unless this has to do clearly with the fact that, for example, when there is a sibilant, okay, for example, the houses, why do we insert this vowel here? I would agree with Nathalie Leblanc here that the E in the plural form, for example, we say cat, cats, dog, dogs, but horse or house, houses, horses. The E is inserted between two sibilants. That's true. Okay. And of course, sometimes you have some sibilants exhibit weird, not weird, but specific idiosyncratic behaviors when they meet. And it's exactly what happens in a number of Amazigh dialects. These sibilants are called al-huruf safiriya. They are called lichouantantes in French, sibilantes. I don't know. Yeah, sibilantes in Spanish. And we call them sibilants in English because they are hissing sounds. But so if you want to specify something as plus or minus sibilant, we have to make sure that it affects all these sibilants, or it groups all the sibilants, in fact. Okay, thank you. I just wonder whether we can move to. Okay, so I think I have. I have not exhausted the list of distinctive features, but I talked about the major ones that I hope will have helped you. I need your feedback when it comes to this, if I have managed to explain them clear enough or clearly enough. Okay, now I'll go back to Lialawi's question. Could you please explain briefly how vowels are classified as high or low? There is one thing I would like to tell you, Mr. Yusuf Yadawi, and through you, tell every friend here who has concerns about this. Look, let's admit to the fact that unlike consonants, vowels are very elusive. That's a fact. It's more obvious to describe the place of articulation of a consonant, and far less so to describe the place of articulation or the part of the tongue or the height of the tongue that is involved in the production of a vowel. One strategy, Mustafa, Mashi Mustafa, see Yusuf, one strategy, for example, high and low, try to contrast a vowel with its opposite. For example, if I have E, U and A. U and A are both back vowels. U is a high vowel. O, especially the A there. O, we have degrees anyway. We have mid, high, etc. Mid, high, mid, low, etc. But we talk in terms of height, minus high, plus high. So you need just to try to articulate the vowel in alternation, and you will feel that the part of the tongue involved raises and lowers. U, ah, when you say u, ah, o, ah, in a succession, you will feel that the tongue raises and lowers. Otherwise, see Li'lawi, you can make use of, sometimes just like that, because sometimes our tongue fails us, and we cannot trace the movements of our tongue, so we do not know whether it's really high, really low. I refer you, I don't know if you have this, I refer you to the cardinal vowel system. Type, I know it, if you know it, Siri Alawi. The cardinal vowel system by Daniel Jones. So you just type this on Google, the cardinal vowel system by Daniel Jones. The cardinal vowel system by Daniel Jones is a frame of reference. There you will find, because the cardinal vowel system is made of sounds that are artificial. This linguist, this phonetician, has thought of the highest vowel possible, the lowest vowel possible, the backest vowel possible. He talks about that, and he mentions these pillars of extremes, in height and lowness and backness, etc. And he made the assumption that whatever language there is, it has to fit somewhere near these points. So it would be a good idea to look at this chart, and maybe some learning is needed there. It will not take much anyway. So just try to. One thing you can do is look at the vowels that you are interested in and try to draw a diagram or whatever like that of Daniel Jones, and that will help, I hope. Otherwise, you probably, with vowels, it's good to know about the vowels that are high. Just learn them, this, and this, and then from this. Otherwise, it's I admit, and I understand you. It's not like a consonant where you put your tongue in a place and you can feel it. You see. So it's a bit elusive. Nathalie Leblanc says, high vowels are pronounced with the tongue retracted towards the root of the mouth. The problem, Nathalie Leblanc, is that while we can know this, it's learned, you can learn it by heart, But sometimes when it comes to vowels, it's very difficult to see where your tongue is. Is it when I say oh, how do I know that it's in a high position? We don't feel it. But when you say k, you can feel that that the tongue touches the veil. That's the point I'm trying to make in answer to see Mustafa's Sidi Alawi's question. Okay, Alawi, I hope you have heard me. Okay, how can we distinguish? If I were you, I would go to this. I would be involved in some learning. That's all. I mean, that's one way of going about it. Honestly, make use of the cardinal vowel system by Daniel Jones, especially if the exam involves data from different languages, from other languages than English. Okay, but thank you, Natalie, for that contribution of yours. That's a good description. That's an accurate description, anyway. All right. Do you still have questions here? Dialawi, can you hear me? Anyway, if you are gone, you can find this recorded in the video that I will leave here. Okay, now let's move on to the okay. Let's move to these. I share the screen with you. Okay. I hope. Okay. Fenêtre. C'est celle-là. Partager. Ah. Can you see that, ladies and gentlemen? And I cannot see you. All right. Arrêtez le page. Just give me your feedback, please, about whether you have seen the screen or not, please. Have you seen the screen share? That was a test. Tell me, please. I have shared the screen for a few seconds. Please let me know if you have seen it. Thank you. So let me share again now, and I will not be looking at you. I will not. You will not see me, and I will not see you. But okay, let's do this exercise. Your stream will stop. So, Alash, not yet. So okay. All right. Okay. So la fenêtre هي هذه. Partager. Voilà. So here you have in this screen you have an exercise asking you. Okay, it's entitled phonological features. Use plus or minus to specify the sounds in the following charts for all the features. You have 7 points here. Okay, for R, is it plus syllabic or minus syllabic? Is it plus or minus? Okay, for if you are talking about a language like English, then of course this can be plus syllabic if it's given in a context. Like for example, you say harder, der here can be plus syllabic. So I would put here, it's normally minus syllabic, but I can put between brackets plus syllabic because it can potentially function. But since we are not in phonology here, that's phonological features. Here, this needs to be specified, as to whether this is just English or we can consider other languages. But even in English, it can be plus syllabic. So I am making this point that you may have a data set where you have something like harder, bigger, the gr and dr part, the syllable there, can have this plus syllabic. Otherwise, if you want to distinguish it from a vowel, it's minus syllabic. Okay. So here, I would suggest initially it's plus. Initially because it's a consonant, it's minus syllabic. But beware, there are situations where this if there is data, because this will depend on the data, on the examples. Okay, we can give it the feature of plus syllabic. Okay, so but by default, since we don't have data, you see minus syllabic is the default. Sarah, I'm not really satisfied with only minus syllabic, maybe slash plus syllabic Also because there are situations where can function because it's a sonorant. It can function as plus syllabic. For the feature consonantal, yes, of course, it's plus consonantal. For the feature of sonorant, is a sonorant or is it an obstruent? I told you before that sonorants include glides, liquids, and nasals. So is a liquid and therefore it is a plus sonorant. Is a nasal? No, it's an oral, so it's minus nasal. Is a continuant? Yes, it is a continuant. Why? It's because when you produce it, the air continues to flow. You do not block it, so it's plus continuant. Is it anterior? Yes, it is anterior because you have it's produced, you see, by the tip of the tongue, and it's anyway in the anterior part. It's from the anything that is produced from the palate outwards is anterior. So r is not something that is produced. It's not a sound that is produced at the back part of the concept of the oral cavity. So it is plus anterior. Is it a coronal sound? R is a coronal sound. Why? Because when we want to produce r, we need the tip of our tongue or the blade of the tongue. So it's plus coronal. Okay. Now for the second one, ng, of course it's not a vowel and therefore it's minus syllabic. Minus syllabic. Is it consonantal? Yes, it is. It's plus consonantal. Is it a sonorant? Yes, it is a sonorant. علاش? Because it's a nasal. So it's a sonorant. Okay. Is it a nasal? Yes, it is a nasal. Is it a lateral? No, it's not a lateral. نسينا lateral for r. For the sound r, it's also not a lateral. I don't know if I talked about that or not. We talked about it's not being non-nasal. R is not a nasal, and therefore, and also it's not a lateral. N is a nasal, but it's not a lateral, so it's minus lateral. N, is it a continuant? No, it's not a continuant because it's a nasal. علاش؟ لأن الكونتينيوانت is one that allows free or at least continuous air from the mouth, not from the nose. So it's a minus continuant. Is n anterior? No, it's not an interior because it's produced in a place which is the velum. احنا قلنا بلي anterior من الهارد باليت outwards. دابا هذا وصلت هذه وصل سميتو هذا وصل الفيلم donc it's minus anterior. Is it coronal? No, it's not coronal. علاش؟ ما كنحتاجوش the tip of the tongue to produce the n sound. The blade, I mean. So it's minus anterior, minus coronal. Is y syllabic? No, it's not syllabic. It's minus syllabic. علاش? Because we never have a situation where you have a y be in the peak of the syllable. Okay? Y is either an onset or a coda, so minus syllabic. Is it plus consonantal? Yes, because it's it can also be a consonant, so it's a semi-consonant or semi-vowel. Okay, so okay, voila. So let's another reason why y may not be syllabic is that it's always preceded with a vowel when it becomes at the end of the syllable. Okay, nice. So it's plus consonantal, of course. Is it a sonorant? Yes, it is. It glides, nasals, liquids are all sonorants. So E is a plus sonorant. Is it a nasal? It's a minus nasal. Is it a lateral? No, it's not a lateral. Lateral هو ال. Is E a continuant? Yes, it is, because when we produce it, the air continues freely through the oral cavity. Is E anterior? Yes, because it's a palatal, it's an anterior sound. Is it a coronal? It's not, I'm afraid it's not a coronal. Yeah, it's not a coronal because we don't use the blade of the tongue. Yeah, no, we use the front part of the tongue, but not the blade. So yeah is not really a coronal sound. Yeah. I think I have to check this piece of information. Coronal. Anyway, that can so it's not a coronal anyway because coronals are typically described. It's plus anterior, yes, but minus coronal. Anyway, s, is it syllabic? No, it's not. So it's minus syllabic. Is it consonantal? Yes, that's a plus. Is it a sonorant? لا ماشي sonorant. Why? Because sonorants فيهم ثلاثة فيهم glides, liquids, all right? Glides, liquids, and nasals. So S is minus sonorant. Is S a nasal? No, it's not a nasal. So minus. Is it lateral? No, so minus. Is S a continuant? Yes, because when you produce S, the air continues through the oral cavity. Is it an anterior? Yes, it's an anterior because it's produced in the region from the palatal region outwards. Is it a coronal? Yes, it is because when we pronounce it, we use the blade of the tongue. All right, nice. Now let's move on to the second chart where you have these vowels that are, I would agree that these vowels are not easy to handle. They need some learning, perhaps some practice. The practice means you try to write high, low, and back rounded, and then you insert the vowels that you know. That's how we can best know about them. So is it high or low? So is a low vowel. So it's minus high plus low. Is front or back? It's back. So is plus back. Is rounded? No, it's not, because when we produce it, there is no pursing of the lips. How about O? Is it high? No, it's not high. It's also back, although the backness of O, so is more, you are talking about high. So is a low vowel and O is slightly, higher than it, but it's not a high vowel in the proper sense. It's not really high. So it's minus high. Is it low? Yes, it is plus low. Okay. O, yeah, it's mid low, I guess, mid low. Yes. Is it back? Yes, it is. Is it rounded? Yes, it is. Okay. For U, the U, yes, it's high vowel. Is it a low vowel? It's not low, so it's minus low. Is it a back vowel? Yes, it is. Is it rounded? Yes, it is. Okay. So when I say yes, it is, it means you write a plus. No, it's not. Means you write. You see, you write. The screen is okay. I'm really sorry. Is there a problem? I cannot see the screen. Oh, I'm really sorry. After this, yes, yes, we can see you well. I no longer see the screen. I shared it and يمكن problem de connexion. Neither do I. Yeah. Sorry. Screen is off. Unfortunately, you cannot see the comments now. He is sharing the screen. Okay, hopefully you can see our responses and the screen is off. Oh my God. So you have not heard anything? I don't know. I will see your answers here. Let me share again. Let me share the screen again. Fenêtre, هي. Please let me know whether you can see the screen, and then let me know whether you can see the screen, and then let me know whether you can see the screen. No, it's apparently it's off. I'm really sorry. No. Le partage. So, my friends, so since you can't see the screen, there is one plan B that we can do, probably not for today, but for next time when there is an exercise that I share on Facebook, with the promise that we will deal with it later on. Please make sure that when we meet online, I don't need to share the screen because you will have the document with you. And this way we can safely explain things without having this problem, because I myself checked on the phone and it looks like yes, there is a problem. At the beginning, on the first with the first attempt it worked, but when I checked I found out that it was all dark. I'm sorry. So if you would like us to please let's do it this way for the students who are interested. Let's meet tomorrow online, and of course we will have other. I think we will have a data set to deal with, because a friend, I think it was Chernobyl. We will use the board to talk, to discuss, and to show you how to write phonological rules. But before that, we will spend the first half hour or so correcting and explaining, okay, the features, the pluses and minuses that we have there, so that you can be clear on these features. Okay. Yes, Professor, tomorrow, inshallah. Yes, SMS. Okay, my S5 students come incognito. We don't know who is talking. But thank you. I will do that, inshallah. غدا, inshallah, غادي نتلاقاو, and we will talk about, we will correct this and we will add. But please, let's agree on this and tell this, inform the other students. Asma Sadiq. Okay, Asma, thank you. So inform your friends that they need to keep on their screens or to print out or whatever the exercises that I post, so that we will not have this problem, and you will see me talking just like that, okay? While you follow on your papers, okay? Mustafa, it's better to use the board next time. It will be easy to see pluses and minuses. That's obviously, that's for sure, inshallah. But this will be contingent on the followers, especially the students who are expecting an exam, to have these papers on their screens or printed out or whatever. We can also talk about the yes, sure, phonological processes. Yes, very important, because phonological rules are just formal ways of accounting, of describing a given phonological process. That's for sure. So غدا إن شاء الله نهضروا على هادو, Mr. Picasso, GSM. Okay, nice. Now, are there any questions? So we will pose this specific exercise. We assume that. So maybe the objective of today, let's assume, was to introduce features. I hope I have been, the explanation has been of some use. I hope some of you understood things that they couldn't understand before, or at least they have a clearer idea. It's been a good revision, I hope, because those features that I mentioned are the features that are proven to be difficult for a student to understand. Okay, nice. So is there any other question that you would like to ask? Anything that relates to phonology? Picasso GSM, I don't want to answer you here, because this question deserves a full session where we are all energetic and where we all have a friend. We have more friends here. Only 10 people are watching us. It means the others have left. Okay, so Mustafa, yes, it's better to you. Yes, that's true. We can also talk about phonological processes. Mustafa, I highly recommend reading Jennifer Jenkins' work on the phonology of English as an international language. Oh, that's a very good perspective. Okay, that's a very nice perspective, worthy of considering. Thank you very much, Si Mustafa. Would you kindly send me titles about this? Because you talked about world Englishes in your thesis, and I would love to discover more on this topic. Okay, good. So yes, the session was so helpful. Oh, thank you, Baraho. Thank you so much. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Asma Sadiq. Thank you. Si Muhammad Al-Zarq says the role of the nucleus within the syllable is as similar as the role of the topic sentence. Oh yes. Oh yes. A syllable cannot. A syllable can sacrifice an onset, can sacrifice a coda, but it cannot sacrifice an onset. The onset, I'm sorry, a nucleus. The nucleus is what makes a syllable a syllable. Okay. So in the absence, and nuclei, but that's the plural of nucleus, nuclei are generally vocalic. They are vowels. And in the absence of vowels, the next strongest consonant, the next most sonorous consonant takes over. So that you have, if it's not a vowel, it's a l or a r or a n or m. But there are languages like, there are languages anyway where sometimes in the absence of all of these, the language picks up even a voiced consonant like t or a voice stop and makes of it a nucleus, the nucleus of a syllable. But if you are given this in the exam, obviously the professor will give you a remark that, okay, t is a syllabic consonant, just like that, just to help you. Okay, nice. Mustafa, yes, I was. Thank you, si Mustafa. Really nice. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to say about this. I read a number of works in this regard because this notion of native speakerism is now on the wane, given the globalization movement that has changed a lot of conceptions and a lot of ways of looking at things. So one of the consequences is the fact that people have started doing away with the idea that the native speaker is the uncrowned king of linguistics, and therefore is the one that is the standard, the yardstick against which we measure, our competence. Of course, in the context of world Englishes, the notion of the native speaker as a requirement is to judge your fluency and your accuracy is relaxed. Okay, good. The native speaker is dead now. Yes. Okay. Asma Sadiq, tomorrow, inshallah, at the same time. So my lives are at 9 o'clock. Okay, 9 o'clock, because before 9 o'clock, there are things that I have to finish, tasks. And even after the live, sometimes I work. Okay, so fact to admit, Si Morshid and the other friends have always given support, of this initiative, showing interest. Yes, yes, I admit to that, and there are, a few friends here who are keen on. Si Mustafa Morshid does not need this because he has an exam. Si Mustafa Morshid knows these things that I'm talking about. But despite that, look at how he reacted when I talked about coronality, and I linked that to the coronavirus. He was really surprised that he didn't know, for example, this information, and he lacked it so much. And I could judge that. I could judge this. I could make this judgment based on his reaction. It's good to know. I mean, it doesn't mean that when you have an exam, you come and watch, and when you don't have it, to hell with it. No. So it's good. It's a really good thing on the part of Si Mustafa. Okay. Mohammed Zarak, do not forget the lady who turned not to be French. That's Nathalie Leblanc. Yeah, Nathalie is intellectually very curious. Okay. And she's very hardworking, even in a silent, hardworking lady, and well behaved. And yeah, she's just a very nice element, together with her friends, of course, her classmates. Very nice group, master's group. Okay, really proud. Nathalie Leblanc, the famous follower. Yeah, it took us ages to discover who Nathalie is. Okay, yeah, because I was wondering, I was wondering how I would answer her if she asked a question in French. You know, our fluency in French. But Nathalie turned out to be a Moroccan through and through, but a very well behaved and a very nice student. Okay, also eager to know more, and she takes part in these lives despite the fact that she does not need them for her exams. But it's good, Sometimes it is just an expression, a word, an idea that it's not that. I don't mean that I'm the source of that, but that it can either come from me or come from you, as is the case with Si Mustafa Murshid, for example, who has talked about that approach to world English. This is really nice. Okay, good. Si Mustafa, شكرا لك أستاذ وشرف كبير لي. بارك الله فيك. Thank you very much. You are a real intellectual, honestly. Okay, I wish there were live sessions that I could attend too. just to لأعلم ما لم أكن أعلم. Parce que we are not, nobody can claim that he or she knows it and that's all, this is the reference. No, no. We always need, someone to teach us something, you know, over the course of our lifetime. Okay, good. Is there room for more questions? Syntax, phonology, maybe a quick question that I can react to. In case there is, I am here lying in wait. um, uh, Lying in wait is an expression that is used probably in the negative sense of the term. You lie in wait يعني تتربص بشخص ما. So I am lying in wait just to scavenge your questions and try to answer them. All right? Nice. But I guess that only 13 people are there following us. If you are tired, if you want to go to bed and you think that it's better to call it a day, then we can meet tomorrow, inshallah. All right? So, shall we call it a day? Fine. We have no questions now. So let's call it a day. And let's meet tomorrow, inshallah. I will post an announcement. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I will not share the screen anymore. So please make sure that you have the papers and at least the images I've shared, the exercise I've shared, have them ready so that we can follow, without difficulty. Okay, thank you, Si Mustafa Moshi. Thank you, Nathalie Leblanc. Thank you, Si Mohamed Azraq, and all the ones whose names are Asma Sadiq and everyone. Okay, thank you very much once again, Natalie. Good night, Learn English with Zach. Thank you very much. So let's meet, inshallah, tomorrow. In a session in which we will correct these exercises on distinctive features, and we will also, in response to, I think, Chernobyl, who asked, for the phonological rules, but I will do that by means of data. Okay, I will share, a document where you have a data set that we will correct together. Okay, until then, have a good night and have a sweet dreams. Okay, nice, and good luck to the ones who are expecting an exam. Yalla, barakallahu alaikum. Thank you so much.